Okay, so hello everybody and welcome to this Weightless
Rolling.
webinar. Welcome to Weightless, taking the weight of your body off your mind. So I just love this title that our lovely Karen came up with. I think it's brilliant. And on today's webinar, we're actually going to go deeper into how you approach is available to help us with everything from weight loss to letting go of approval to just having an easier time being yourself. And Karen and I have seen a lot in this area, but specifically today, we're going to talk about why taking the weight of your body off your mind is the key. And we're going to delve into the role resistance to your weight plays and why this, not food, sits at the heart of your struggle. And you're also going to learn an easy way to free yourself from the opinions of others. And you'll see you'll see the futility of using willpower to control your body. And we hope to share with you a really graceful approach to everything in this area, especially for those of you that are struggling with health, struggling with weight, struggling with needing approval from others. Have I missed anything there, Karen, that we're covering on today's webinar?
Nope, that's about the foundation of it.
Lovely.
And once those things click into place, you get so much more.
Yes, lovely. So what I would suggest for everybody is, some of you know Karen, some of you know me. So I thought we might have a little introduction just so that you're not wondering why we're bringing you this topic together and who we are individually. Karen, do you want to start? Because I feel like it will be really good for you to share this piece first.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start in the middle, like it's a movie, right? The camera pans in on this woman crumpled on the floor of her bedroom closet in a puddle of snot and tears. And that was a moment in 2011 that after years, 30, 20, my eating issues, my eating disorder symptoms, like everything started when I was around 11 years old. Almost killed me a couple times. And in 2011, I had this lifelong history of eating disorders. And at that time I had diagnoses of chronic fatigue syndrome and was wickedly depressed, suicidal most of my life because I was trapped in this approval seeking stuff. And it was a moment of absolute surrender. I can't do this anymore. I was so sick and so suicidal but I can't do it because I was raised Catholic. So you can't escape because you'll go to hell, and you couldn't, I can't do this anymore. So it was just this moment of, I can't do it anymore. And I was absolutely convinced that if I didn't continue the white knuckle control over my body and the approval of others and that of trying so hard, I didn't want people to be disappointed in me. I didn't want people to be angry with me. I thought for somebody to not like me was a death sentence. And I actually believe that if I didn't do all those things, that I would die. Like it felt like that. If somebody was disappointed in me or didn't like me or didn't approve of me, I would die. But I knew that I couldn't do it anymore. And everything changed from that moment. And it all got better. Everything healed. And so my background is in nursing. I've been a nurse for over 20 years. And my expertise at the time was in functional and integrative medicine. Most of my nursing career was spent in intensive care units and trauma nursing and flight nursing. And I'd spit myself out of the system to help people like me figure out what was really wrong with them, and just instead of just taking medications to cover up the symptoms. And it was through that journey and that schooling and that expertise that I saw how much was wrong with myself. And I became my first client, and I saw what all that people-pleasing stuff had done to my health and done to my body. And I knew I couldn't go on anymore. And that moment of surrender, all my life, I thought, okay, everybody has to like me. Okay, I don't want to be left behind. And in order to not be left behind, people have to like me. And in order for people to like me, I have to be thin. I have to be pretty. I have to be smart. I have to be witty. I have to be kind. I have to do all these things. So my whole life was box checking all day long, every day. And when that moment came, that surrendered in a puddle of snot and tears moment came, and I saw, I'm going to be left behind. I'm just going to be left behind, and it's just going to be okay because I can't do all this box checking anymore. All of that need to do that fell away, and my health improved and my eating disorders just went away. And so all my life, looking at food and diet and weight and this white knuckle control to maintain my weight, it has to be right here, because if it gets too low, that could kill me. I had that experience a couple of times before. If it gets too high, then people won't like me anymore. So just maintaining this. And when I thought it was all about food and weight and diet, but when the gestalt, the foundation piece, I don't need to be approved of, when that fell away, everything else downstream from that unraveled. And it was never about the food. It was never about my weight. And that's what now I help other people to see, is the things that we do to ourselves that we believe are keeping us safe are actually the things that are keeping us sick and tired and miserable. That was kind of a 5-minute nutshell of everything, Grace, but
I love
is
it.
that not clear?
Yeah, love it. Yes. Lovely, Karen. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think every woman can identify with that. You know, it's a hugely important piece. For my own background, you know, Karen and I are bringing this topic to you together because we have been exploring and geeking out on this whole thing, like literally this biology of approval, for the last number of months, and probably since we met each other. We met each other about 3-4 years ago. I was on Michael Neal's apprenticeship program, and Karen came into my life, and it was such a blessing when we got together and we started recognizing to some degree that there was a similarity in just this whole concern, what I call self-concern, you know. And I suppose that's where I am coming at this today, is what I have seen deeply around self-concern and self-consciousness is what I hope will be transformative for those of you that might not necessarily be wanting to lose weight, but might feel extremely uncomfortable in your own skin. So my experience in a nutshell was walking into this lovely room one day with lovely people and nothing threatening, and just feeling this terrible discomfort in my body. And I was surrounded by, you know, good people. They were all looking at coaching. We were with a coach. It was great. There was absolutely no need for me to feel uncomfortable. But as the weekend went on, and as my mind started to quieten down a bit, it became really obvious that my uncomfortable feeling that I was experiencing was really self-consciousness, and it was very much sitting in my chest. I find myself holding my breath a lot. I find myself just generally uncomfortable in my own skin. And you know, that had been my experience for all of my life, to kind of just walk into a room or meet new people and feel self-conscious. But I didn't really see that until that weekend, where I had the opportunity to just notice that, you know, that's what was going on. So I became somewhat fascinated in how this insecure thinking that we all live in can actually generate such strong feelings in the body. And I'm particularly interested in sort of helping point people back to that wisdom within our body, and that wisdom within all of us, that that isn't coming to connect with one another, that can allow us to enjoy life, that can allow us to have a good time when we're here. Up until that point in my life, and part of what Karen and I have been exploring together has been this guilt and shame that women and probably everybody actually live in when they're getting lost in those insecure thoughts. And so whilst my life looked wonderful on the outside, living in Italy and having a successful business and being free of a day job and having good health, on the inside, there was a real lack of enjoyment. There was a lot of guilt and shame, you know, around, just similar to Karen, just, you know, what am I eating? What am I drinking? What does this mean about me? Oh my God. Like, I had this perception that what was going to occur for me was that I was going to star in an episode of my 300-pound life. And it was so unrealistic. And so, but it was my experience as I lived in those insecure thoughts about my body, about my image, about myself. So today I'm helping women who want to make a change in their career and get a business going in a new direction for themselves. But what I notice coming up all the time is really helping women get beyond the insecure thoughts, or get freedom with the insecure thoughts, as Karen and I explored, getting freedom with the insecurity to simply go and live your life on purpose, rather than get caught up in all of that noise. So I'm hoping today will be really helpful to those of you. It's not just about, right, like that's only one of the incredible benefits and possibilities of looking in this direction. Would you agree?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I love what you just pointed out. It's, people think that when I get the right number on the scale, when I get the right number in the bank account, when I have the right partner or relationship, then I'll have my happiness, then I'll have my freedom. But freedom from insecure thinking about our bodies, about our bank account, about our relationship, it's just not in the cards. It's not in the cards for any human being. And the reason it's not is because we are hardwired for approval. It's in our DNA, and it's why we're all here today. You know, it's why our human species has survived, because somewhere in our DNA, you know, whatever created us also created this need for approval. Why? Because if you get kicked out of the tribe, then you're going to be killed by the elements or by wolves. So you want to please Ankh. You know, that's, you know, when we were tribal, we wanted to please the rest of the tribe. We wanted to participate in whatever, and that is hardwired into us. But now in our modern age, when we don't have tribes, we don't have to worry about being kicked out for our survival. That piece in us that seeks approval is still there, but when you see where it's coming from and it's actually on your side, and that's where that thinking and that need for approval is coming from, you can see, oh, it's not ever going to go away. It's part of who I am. But then you can see it. There's a separation between you and it, and you can have freedom with it. You know, and you can see the thoughts about approval, or, you know, the self-consciousness, as Grace was saying, come and go like clouds in the sky, and know that that's not you. That's just part of your survival mechanism. Yeah. And it takes the weight off of your, you know, we get sucked into believing that when I'm, you know, when I wake up in the morning and I see my back fat, you know, spilling over my black fat spilling over my waistband or something, oh, this is tragic. Oh, that's me. And I have to do something about that. But when you see where that's just a thought in your head in the moment, and there's nothing you need to do about it, and the thought can come and go, then it becomes more playful. Then, you know, playing with ourselves, you know, playing with our diets, playing with our bodies, being curious about how this divine instrument works becomes playful and more free. And as Grace was saying, Grace helps women find their careers, you know, or find their purpose in what they're doing. They're graceful. What is it that your graceful purpose? I love how you say that, but there's yeah, there's just this freedom and playfulness that gets injected into our lives when we see where that insecure thinking is made, what it's made of. And there's a biology, and we're going to geek out about that in a bit. But there's a whole, I love that because I'm such a geek about science and biology. I see how the resistance to those thoughts and how the resistance to ourselves creates an uphill battle, whether that's, about losing weight or gaining health, or when we resist how we are, it creates this vicious cycle. And when you can find freedom in it, then it becomes playful. I kind of went off on one, lost my place. Grace, are you there? Well, I'll give a little example of what I was talking about. So this was so fascinating to me when I saw it. So everybody's heard, probably most people have heard that stress creates weight gain, right? Or inflammation in the body, chronic stress, okay? So when we are hyper vigilant about our bodies and our weight, about the number on the scale, it creates this chronic drip, drip, drip of cortisol. Cortisol is your major stress hormone, okay? So I'll say this twice because it's a bit geeky. So when we are on red alert for what people think of us, okay, or how our bodies look, we're on red alert, okay, all the time. You wake up before your feet even touch the ground in the morning. You're like, oh, what's the number on the scale going to say today? Oh, and you kind of dread that. What am I going to eat today? And you start planning out, oh, maybe I should skip breakfast. I read something about intermittent fasting and maybe I'll skip breakfast. And oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. Okay, I'll just skip lunch. And then, oh yeah, we're going out to dinner tonight. I better look at the menu ahead of time because I can't trust myself, right? All that stuff all day long, every day. What am I going to wear? How do I look? I got to go on a diet, blah, blah, blah. Creates a stress response, a chronic stress response. When we are under chronic stress, cortisol is released. Our body is on our side. The stress response is meant to give us energy to fight the elements, to go find shelter, to go find food, to run from the tiger, right? So cortisol releases energy from our cells in the form of glucose. Okay, glucose is our energy, our blood sugar. But we don't go find shelter or run from the tiger or shoot the mammoth. We just sit there and ruminate in our chairs, right? So our blood sugar goes up because we're not burning off the energy, so the blood sugar goes up. The body has very strict controls about sugar because when your glucose gets too high, it's like battery acid to our organs. So the body detects a rise in blood glucose. And what does it do to bring it back down? It releases insulin. Okay, now what does insulin do? It not only brings our blood glucose down to a comfortable level for our bodies, but it also tells our body to store fat. So let me do that again. Oh my God, I'm so fat. What's the number I'm going to say on the scale today? I can't trust myself around food. Oh, cortisol. The body doesn't distinguish between the thinking on our head and the tiger, right? So it's like, oh shit, something's wrong. Here's some energy. Cortisol increases blood glucose. We don't burn off the blood glucose. The blood sugar goes up. Then the body goes, oh shit, blood sugar is too high. Insulin. Insulin brings the glucose down and tells our body to store fat. So when we are fretting and on red alert for how we look all day long, it's like eating all day long. Well, kind of. It's telling our bodies to store fat all day long, this red alert for how we look. So that's why, and this is just one instance. This is just a very specific instance around weight and what we do to ourselves. But we're fighting an uphill battle if we're constantly worried about how we look in our weight. We want to help our bodies find a natural weight, find the health again. But when we're constantly on red alert and worried about it, we're working against ourselves. And that is why taking the weight of our bodies off our minds is foundational. Finding freedom with exactly who we are and how we look in the moment. Find that freedom first is foundational. And the dirty little secret is when we find that freedom first, the natural tendency for our bodies is to find its natural set point in how we work. But it doesn't matter, because when you find that freedom first, you can just be exactly where you are and how you are, and be free and playful first. And then the other stuff comes along more gracefully later.
Yeah, and Karen, you know, just for those that maybe aren't so caught up on how they look, what about in terms of those that are on red alert about something else? Like, I know when I was in my day job, I was a school teacher in London, and I had so many symptoms in my body. The doctors couldn't figure out, private doctors, everything. I was very much at the time on red alert about what's wrong with my body versus what's wrong with my weight. In fact, I think I dropped a ton of weight around that time, rather than stored it. So, I mean, what we're sharing here, you know, we're not just talking about weight loss, right? Does this lend itself to those other red alerts, or can you speak to that for those that are listening and concerned about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, our biology it's very unbiased. You know, I work with people with chronic, like I had, you know, with chronic fatigue syndrome and chronic Lyme disease and fibromyalgia and MS and autoimmune issues. We're all snowflakes, you know, our genetics we're basically made of the same hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, and stardust as one another, and our biology basically functions the same. But we have such unique genetic structures that how that red alert is going to manifest itself in everybody's individual body looks different. One person, it might be weight gain or an inability to take weight off. Another person, it might come out as depression. Another person, it might come out as an autoimmune issue. It depends on the chinks in our armor, but it all works the same upstream. How it manifests itself downstream is going to be different for every individual. Some people can make, like you were experiencing symptoms, Grace, you're red alert about your job and I got to get out of here. And that trapped feeling, that resistance to what is, was creating inflammation upstream in the system. And for you, it looked how it looked for you. And it looks different for each individual. But the real work that we have to do is upstream. And where is that, you know, whether it's approval seeking or whatever it is about our current reality that we're resisting, finding freedom there first tends to unravel all the other stuff that we're battling downstream. You know, I love the story of Anita Morjani. You know, you hear me talk about her all the time. The woman was in multi-system organ failure, in a coma on a ventilator. Her family was coming to say goodbye because they were going to discontinue life support. And she had a near-death experience, and way, way upstream, she saw during this experience, oh, I've been afraid my whole life. Afraid of shame, afraid of disappointing people, afraid of cancer. She worked her whole life to avoid cancer because she was deathly afraid of getting cancer, and she ends up getting cancer downstream, right? This is the downstream effect of all this upstream fear and resistance to who she was and what is. And when she saw that during that near-death experience, everything unraveled and her cancer went away. She woke up and everyone was like, what are you doing alive still? And without any further intervention, her cancer was gone. And I think it was 30 or 60 days. I'm going to botch that exact time frame, but the time frame doesn't matter. And that is available to all of us. You know, we spend so much time downstream and symptoms and what does this mean? And how do I fix my weight? How do I fix my tiredness? How do I fix this pain, this joint pain, all of this stuff downstream? But the answers are all here, upstream, in the fear that we live in the resistance to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a bit, because I know part of our content is looking at, you know, this resistance piece, Karen, you know, and there's something like when people aren't aware of that resistance that's going on, you know, and they're not aware and they're innocently just living in that insecurity, you know, that's the place that I see can be a blind spot, you know. And I know in my own life, you know, it looked to me like I could be having a really nice meal and a really good time, but underneath it all, there was noise, you know, there was noise about the food. There was noise about how I would suffer the next day. There was noise about, there was guilt about the habits. There was shame about the quantities. And I didn't know that was all resistance. Like we just live in that noise, you know, we just live in it. Now, what struck me as I became aware of the noise was that I could start noticing when I was listening to that voice. But for those people who aren't aware of that resistance going on, can we point them a little bit to waking up to that? Like, what was your experience? And I'm happy to share mine too, but what was your experience of actually coming to see that that's what the key was, that it wasn't about food, it wasn't about quantity, it wasn't about getting more exercise, it was about this role of resistance in terms of creating lasting change?
Yeah, well, I think that's the magic of this conversation, because whatever it is that brings the white noise, that how we've been living our whole lives, that the white noise, we don't even hear it, because that's how we've become so accustomed to living that way. For me, it was approval seeking. I can talk about it now because now I see it so clearly, but back then that was just the way things were. You know, it was, for me, the moment was, the puddle of snot and tears moment was because I got a neurotransmitter test. So part of what I do is I test people's adrenals and their neurotransmitters, their levels of their stress hormones and their levels of the molecules of emotion, you know, for lack of a better term, the brake pedal and the gas in their nervous system. So I was my first client, and the first test I ever saw was my own. And this is when I had the diagnosis of chronic fatigue syndrome and Lyme disease and all that stuff. And I got my test back, and the man who was mentoring me, the doctor who was mentoring me in this, I saw my test and everything was in the toilet. Like I was in a phase 3 adrenal exhaustion. All of my brake pad, my gas pedal, so adrenaline, and my brake pads of my nervous system were all completely worn down. And he told me, he's like, I've seen tests that are 50% better than this, and people are suicidal, they won't get out of bed, they're basically catatonically depressed. But you just keep plugging. Like, if anybody had seen me, Grace, in that moment, because I hid it, because I would be mortified if anybody thought I was sick. So I just kept plugging away and pushing on. But when I saw that test in that moment and saw what I had been doing to myself my whole life, it brought the white noise of approval seeking down to a loud roar. And so I had a choice to continue to do this, which was literally killing me, or to give up the approval of others. And that was a moment in my life when the roar was so scary to go through that. It was so scary to actually, I knew I can't pick up these masks and this armor I'd been wearing anymore, that I thought was protecting me from people seeing who I really was. But I couldn't continue to do that because it was killing me. So I had to go through this scary roar. I had to go through this door and risk just being myself and come what may. And the funny thing was, I was better in 3 weeks. You know, I kind of woke up out of this chronic fatigue fog in 3 weeks, and it was this retrospective, oh my God, I'm better. I haven't even thought about food, you know, but it wasn't it was like a looking back kind of thing.
And I want to pick up on that, Karen, actually, because I see that as the key to all change. You know, it's not about more information, ladies. You know, you're probably all really clued up on what you should or could or would be doing. But what I hear you sharing, Karen, is what I've seen in all of my clients that have had the most dramatic, quick turnaround. It's that moment of insight that some of you will be familiar with already. But it's that moment of when you see for yourself, when you really see it for yourself, your whole world changes. You know, that was my experience in that room that day. I was in that situation with that lovely group of people and totally unable to connect with them and feeling so uptight. But something about that weekend retreat with that particular coach helped me quieten down the white noise enough to see that I was living in the experience of self-consciousness, and that was coming from listening very intently to insecure thought. And so, you know, I love that you're seeing it. So you don't have to be Anita Maraji here. Sorry if I get the name wrong. But you don't have to be Anita you don't have to have a near-death experience, ladies, to get a transformative shift. There is something fundamentally, you know, easy and simple, which is why we're calling this a revolutionary new approach. But there is something really simple about when you see it for yourself. You know, it changes everything. One of the things I see people do, Karen, a lot, you know, is they're gathering more and more opinions, more and more information, more and more, you know, and I've done that too. I've noticed when I get really insecure, I want to know, how long is it going to take? What diet do we have to follow? What direction do we have to go in? What's worked for everybody else? Can you speak a little bit about, let's both speak a bit about the wisdom of the body versus other people's wisdom on what works for them?
Yeah, well, I mean, anybody who's heard me or been on a course or worked with me before has heard me talk about man as part of nature, not apart from nature. And I love to give the examples of, you know, the trees don't go to Barnes and Noble to get a book on when's the best time to bloom in spring and lose their leaves in fall, you know, and the lion doesn't look at the antelope and wonder if it should have seconds. And the antelope doesn't wonder if it'd be rude to run. You know, everything in nature has its own manual built into the system. And somewhere along the line, beginning at about the age of 2, when we start to understand language, and we start getting, you know, with good intention from our elders, but we start getting guided away from that manual. You know, don't laugh, that's not funny. That's not ladylike. Finish your plate, you know, clean your plate. You don't need seconds. You know, all of these messages that start telling ourselves that we don't know and we can't trust our own manual. In our system is a perfection. How much to eat, when to eat, you know, and it's not 8 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 5 o'clock at night with, you know, 5 small meals a day. We get all that information because we've been taken away from our internal instincts about food and about everything, really, right? Now we try to find our way back by reading the way that somebody else did it. But, you know, people write books, gurus write books about food and success and everything like that because they write about what worked for them, what their manual told them. But if we are reading somebody else's manual, we might see some improvement, but we're always going to be a bit off because it's not our own. And we're never going to really trust that we know because we're getting the advice of somebody else. But yeah, I mean, now it's the internet. Everybody's, because of that insecurity that you were just talking about, we want to know what to do. You know, I want my life to be better. I want to feel healthier. I want to feel whatever. What do I do? And it's not about getting more information from somebody else. It's actually about taking the weight off of your mind about the opinions of others and tapping into that even more. We're all plugged into this thing, but we don't buy it. And so it's about taking the weight of everybody else's opinions and everybody else's words and all the diet gurus and what to do. It's built into you. And when you take the weight and that noise off your mind, you can start to feel it come through. And that's what we like to do, Grace, is like through insight, let people feel their own wisdom. And once you feel it once and maybe twice and learn to trust it, then you're free. Then your whole life becomes about feeling that more, feeling and trusting your own wisdom more instead of filling yourself up with the ideas of others. Well-meaning, and it worked for them, but you have something even better within you.
Yeah, I love that, Karen. You know, I speak with my clients about that, you know, that guide inside, that inner GPS, and it's not unique to your job. One thing that struck me, you know, here living in Italy, I'm surrounded by just the best of food, the best, and Karen's been here in Italy with me, so I know you can vouch for this experience, Karen. But you know, just being around the best of food, the best of, you know, the healthiest of options and things. What has always struck me here is that, you know, when we really know what to eat, and I think for so many women, and self included in the past, it would come so much into my mind in advance. What should I eat? What will I eat? What should it look like? Like all this noise of pre-planning, all this kind of white noise that you describe. And one of the things that I've loved about living here is just how food is celebrated, and food is not, it's not shamed. You know, it's not, I don't know if that's unique to where I am in the world. I mean, this is Italy's food culture, Puglia in the south of Italy here. But it's very much a ritual, and what I have noticed is just this ability to reconnect with real food. You know, the ability to actually experience fresh food and fresh produce. Now, I'm not saying that's not available elsewhere, but I think that our relationship to food is different in different cultures. And I certainly have experienced more freedom around that here. Do you want to share anything? Do you want to share anything around that? Because you've been here too. So what's your take on that for those that are wondering about the food element?
Yeah, well, that was kind of like how we got to the seed of doing this together got planted, is because I was just finishing a course, Weightless, taking the weight of your body off your mind. And being in Italy was like, oh my God, this is the laboratory, you know, because all the concepts that I was trying to share on the course, you know, the conversation, hoping people would, just 8 weeks of kind of sharing the same thing, wanting people to have their own insight and see it for themselves. And then you're dropped into Italy where you just live those concepts, you know, where food is celebrated, and people, I mean, throughout human history, you know, like just for example, you know, you can pick up, 50% of diet books are saying you don't want your metabolism to slow down, eat 5 small meals a day. Well, that's bullshit. Sorry. I get passionate. I mean, following how much to eat and when to eat and how many times to eat. I mean, look at human history. It was like 1 meal a day, and the whole tribe, the whole community celebrated and did their part to bring this 1 meal a day-ish, to the table. And it was a community, and it was celebrated, and there was prayer and all this stuff like that. And they took their time, and it was a big social event. And that is alive in Italy, and people don't wonder, what should I eat? When should I eat? How much? You just stop when you're not hungry anymore. You don't, it's just so natural. And I loved being there, Grace, because it was the laboratory of everything I was trying to communicate. And I loved how easy it was there to live the manual that's built into the system, And it covered so many bases, the freshness of the food. But what I see about Italy is that is built into us. You can bring your Italy with you wherever you go, but it was so cool to feel it so powerfully there.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk more about Italy in a little bit with an opportunity that we have for you ladies. But let's just go back, if you don't mind, Karen. Let's go back to this idea of using willpower to control our eating habits and our patterns, because there is this real idea that, you know, it's about willpower, and it's about dieting, and it's about using your mind to actually make a change. Now, obviously, Karen and I know it's not about that, but for those that are listening to this replay that are convinced, Karen, that actually it is about willpower and they're just not strong enough, I'd love to talk to that and just to kind of put a precursor to that. Like, there's something around, you know, those that are caught up in cycles of guilt and shame about their habits. But maybe I'll speak to that bit afterwards. Let's speak to the first bit, Karen. What do you, when we talk about the futility of willpower, what do we really mean here?
Well, I love using the metaphor of the 10 Commandments and the translation that is not thou shalt. And this isn't about religion, ladies, you know, for anybody who is, but just using this as a metaphor. Okay, so there's a translation that all those thou shalt not, willpower, you know, will yourself to behave, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't, you know, honor thy father and mother, below the thou shall and thou shalt, using willpower. Well, there's a new translation that was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls, very important word. It wasn't thou shalt, it was thou shall. Thou shall. And it's when you are full of it's loosely translated, when you allow God to enter your heart. Okay, so when you are full of this energy of life, thou shall not. Like it's more like a signpost than a command. You'll know when you wouldn't even think about stealing from somebody, when you wouldn't even think about lying or murdering or whatever. It's because you're so full. This is how you operate when you're full. And in the same way, willpower, when we're insecure, that we don't know what to do, and our minds are full of diet books and how-tos and, oh my gosh, I don't know, and not trusting ourselves, then you have to will yourself. You have to willpower yourself to behave. But when you get all that stuff off of your mind, the signposts of eating when you're hungry, of eating what you want, of stopping when you're not even stopping when you're full, stopping when you're not hungry anymore, and eating slow and enjoying your food. Those are the signposts. There's a book written, Michael Neal and what's the book? I Can Make You Thin.
Paul McKenna,
thank you. So just like the opposite, right? The 10 Commandments, his four commandments were eat when you're hungry, eat what you want, enjoy your food. In other words, eat slowly, and then stop when you're full or when you're not hungry. Those were the commandments. But it works more back to front when the weight of your body and how to do it and having to will yourself is off your mind. Those behaviors are how every human being, it's their birthright, how every human being is designed to eat. So it's not about, oh, now there's something else to do. Okay, right, check the box. Gotta eat what I want. Gotta eat when I'm hungry. No. That's your behavior. That's how there's no need for willpower when the weight is off your mind, because those are the behaviors that come through you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I know that people get into habits, you know, very innocently, not recognizing that it's that noise, ladies, that has us go into the cycle. What's really helped me along this journey, is in simply noticing that the habits that we engage in, the habits that I engage in, are simple feedback for when I'm listening too closely to the white noise. You know, I'll find that I'm grabbing for more. I need more of everything to get the same feeling, to get the same experience, when I'm coming from that insecure noise, when I'm coming from that place. And so there is something so freeing about letting yourself see the innocence of your behavior and habits. So many people that I speak with are beating themselves up, are really torturing themselves internally about their habits and their behaviors. Oh, I eat too much, I drink too much, I do this too much, I'm always doing that. And I really started to see over time, especially in our conversation I was in, had nothing to do with something being wrong with my body or something being up with my habits, and everything to do with the level of noise, insecure thought, and resistance I was living in. And that was huge. That was huge, because up until that point, I was convinced that my tiredness meant something. I was convinced that my bad habits of reaching for another glass of wine, or reaching for another piece of pizza, or reaching for that was the problem. And so for those of you that are listening to the recording, you know, there is a freedom here that opens up around your habits, around your behaviors, whether it's to do with food, alcohol, shopping, whatever it is. I have seen it open up in myself and in my clients when they really get this freedom from that white noise, freedom from the opinions of others, freedom with the insecurity as we go about, as we move forward. Up until that point, it really looked to me, Karen, like people needed to use willpower to change their habits. You know, so you were with me actually. We were in Los Angeles together when I had that deep insight that came out of the blue, literally, about, you know, why we behave the way we behave. And so for those of you that are stuck in those, what looks like behavior, freedom is on offer. Freedom from that is on offer as you start to see where it's coming from. Karen, do you want to share anything on that? Do you want to share anything around eating patterns or behaviors or habits?
Yeah, well, I have a question for you first, because I think it's, you know, people hear freedom from, and I like, you know me, I like freedom with. But when you're, Grace, like, how is your life different now when you're, you know, maybe you're out with friends or at a dinner, and that, you know, oh, you're having another glass of wine, right? The waiter comes by and pours another, and then you start, the old thinking comes up, oh, I shouldn't, and then the back and forth, and the 12 voices in your head, you know, arguing with each other about whether you should or shouldn't. How's your life different now when that comes up? Because it does for me still, you know, but there's a difference, there's a nuance, there's a freedom with it. And I'd love to hear your experience, because you're in the heart of food and wine, and, you know, when that comes up, what's your experience of it?
And gluten. Well, that's why I'm saying freedom from, freedom with. You know, we're talking the same thing here. We're talking freedom regardless. You know, that noise is that critical thinking is so much less intense and has so much less grip on me now. Like it shows its ugly head, but it's not at times, but it just doesn't have the same intrigue and the same pull that it used to. And what I notice more and more is that as the self-concern has fallen away or diminished greatly, the freedom of enjoyment has opened up. So it's all very well living in Italy and being surrounded by food and lovely wines and great parties and great people, but to a certain extent, until I saw this more deeply, I did not enjoy any of that. I lived it, but I had a lot of guilt and shame around it, and I had to be very careful. Otherwise, I might star in an episode of My 300 Pounds Life. I had to be careful, otherwise I might be tired for the next 10 weeks. I had to be careful. Everything was hyper-vigilant, Karen, until I saw where my experience was coming from, and until I really saw more deeply that the voice in my head that was warning me against another glass of wine, that was warning me against eating pasta, that was warning me against staying up too late, that was warning me against doing something, whatever it was insecurity and wasn't actually wisdom speaking. And up until I saw the difference between that insecurity and that wisdom, my life looked beautiful on the outside, but it was not enjoyable on the inside. So the short answer is a freedom of enjoyment is what has opened up, Karen. You know, it was kind of like, it would kind of be like if someone like won the lottery, but they actually couldn't enjoy the money and they didn't spend it and they just freaked out about it, or they gave it all away, you know. Up until I saw that this was on offer. And really there was something about trusting wisdom. You know, I wasn't directly looking at the wisdom of the body, and yet looking in the direction that we're sharing with you here, ladies, looking in the direction of wisdom versus insecurity, and looking in the direction of, you know, taking the weight of our body off our mind. Something about that, even though I wasn't looking directly at food as such, like that wisdom is universal. That wisdom was applicable in all areas. And as I got more interested in when wisdom was speaking versus when insecurity was speaking, it had an impact on all areas of my life. Mm-hmm. The self-consciousness really started to drop. I mean, I'll give you a quick story, but I remember being on the beach only a few years previously, and I was so uncomfortable lying on the beach. Everybody was totally ignoring me. I'm sure they were all worried about their own bodies, and I didn't know what it was. I just felt uncomfortable. I didn't know that was coming from insecure thought. I didn't know I was listening to the voice in my head over and over and over about my body, and how do I compare, and how do I look, and oh my God, her bikini is better than mine, and blah, 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 blah. And so it really looked like my only choice was to go to the bar and down 2 shots of vodka and go back to the beach. Because then I'd be okay. Then I'd be relaxed. Then I wouldn't care what they thought. And so I can totally see why people get into habits and addiction and overeating or overspending or over drinking or whatever, because when you don't know where your feeling is really coming from, when you're listening to that insecurity intently, you're afraid of it. I mean, I was afraid of how I was feeling on the beach in France. So it looked like a good idea to just down shots of vodka. Now, did it help? Not really. But in the moment, it felt like that was where I could get my more confidence from. Today, I don't have to do that. Like, there is a freedom, again, freedom with even this white noise and this thinking. We get to be comfortable in our own skin. We don't have to lose X amount. We don't have to wear the best of whatever. We can have a preference to do so, but there is a freedom that comes with looking in this direction, at this approach, that doesn't involve willpower and doesn't require you to suffer through life with insecurity the whole time. So that's my that's my bit. Thanks for asking.
There was a couple of things that I wanted to just flag in what you said, because it was just, you know, you said you were in Italy and you experienced it one way, pushing away, you know, like controlling what went in your mouth and worrying about all that stuff. You like, you'd won the lottery, but you couldn't spend it, right? And then when you opened up to it, when you opened up to life, when you became more full of life and full of yourself in a good way, in the best possible way, then what to do around those things came naturally, you know, from a place of wisdom. And I love that part. I mean, that's like a perfect example of what we were talking about, when you allowed life in and life to live through you. And it wasn't up to little Grace in here, you know, life, the universe moved your bones how it wanted to, and you could kind of take your hands off the wheel. And that's the freedom that we're hoping that people find. And the other part was that you can have that insecure feeling on the beach and know that you don't have to do anything with it. You could just feel insecure. You know, you don't have to go down shots of vodka. You don't have to go on a diet. You don't have to buy a new bikini. You don't have to worry. Just knowing that that's a temporary feeling, and it's going to go away all on its own. Like the snowflakes in a snow globe settle all on their own without us. But we tend to like, oh, insecure feeling, I'm afraid, icky, I don't like it, I have to do something about it. And it just tends to make it feel more intense, you know, intensify the feeling and make it hang around a lot longer. But when you see that that's just a feeling, it's going to come and go, and we don't have to be afraid of it. You know, you can just feel insecure. You can just feel kind of shitty for a bit. And oh my gosh, the sun came out without me doing a thing about it.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's super, I mean, it's so innocent. It's so innocent in people when they're not seeing it. Like I really have a deep compassion for people when they're not seeing it, because you know what? It does look like a good idea to eat more, to drink more, to shop more, to do whatever that thing is that you do in order to try and get back to a good feeling. But what's on offer here, ladies, is that feeling is always available to you, and it's as you see that more deeply, as you experience that more deeply, it won't look like a good idea to you to use something to try and get there. It no longer looks like a good idea to me if I'm uncomfortable, you know, in our misread idea of where our feeling is coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about willpower, you know, we're brought up in this culture, first and foremost, you know, the Hollywoodization of our lives, that we need to be something extraordinary, you know, that our bodies need to be extraordinary because that's what the magazines say. And that's what, you know, and so we're led down this road of battling for the extraordinary, whether it's an extraordinary relationship or an extraordinary body or an extraordinary career or an extraordinary bank account. And we set ourselves up for this lifelong battle. We got to win the battle against the bulge. We got to win the, you know, we got to fight for the number in the bank account. We got to fight for the, you know, the Hollywood relationship. And then after the fight, when I willpower myself through life, when I win the fight, then I'll have my peace and well-being. When I get the extraordinary, then I can relax. Then life can begin when I get that extraordinary thing. And it's a lie. And it keeps us in this cycle of having to will ourselves. If you approach life as everything, I mean, even in the politics, we got to fight against guns, and we got to fight for gun control, and we got to fight for gun rights, and we got to fight Trump, and we got to fight, like everything's a fight. And then when I just get over this hill and win the battle, then life can begin. Then I can have my peace and well-being. But if you approach life with that paradigm, which is not true, that's not how life is supposed to be. At least that's what I found. Then there's always going to be another fight. But when you see, oh, I can just be ordinary, the extraordinariness of being ordinary. I encourage people to be extraordinary. When you find peace in the ordinary, the dirty little secret is when you lay down the weapon of trying to have the extraordinary, the dirty little secret is that life becomes rather extraordinary. You find infinity in the now when you're not fighting for the future, and you don't have to will. There's no efforting here. We're here. There's no effort in being here, but we're always willpowering ourselves into some extraordinary ideal that we've bought into.
Yeah. And the system is set up that way, that's what I noticed. The system is set up for you to be totally not content with who you are and where you are right now. I only have to go and scroll on Instagram for a few minutes, and I can see it's completely set up to point you back to, there's something wrong with you. You need this help. You're not enough. You need this. This is the solution. This is this. This is that. The system is set up and designed to make sure that you don't experience contentment, that you need more.
That's so true.
And there is, again, we're back to freedom. I think, Karen, I think the great freedom of being able to experience contentment, to experience the ordinary in such an extraordinary way. And again, that coming from not falling for that white noise in your head that's telling you you need more. There's something wrong. Now, if wisdom brings you, which is very different, if wisdom brings you a sense of, I need to check something out, if wisdom brings you a sense of, I need to look in a different direction, then you'll know, because it'll be coming from your wisdom. One of my clients told me last week, Grace, wisdom's telling me there's something up here and I'm not at the bottom of it yet. I'm going to look in this direction. You'd never argue with your wisdom, but it comes with a very different feeling than the insecure noise that keeps telling you, you need to be extraordinary, you need more, you need to be thinner, you need to be prettier, you need to be stronger, you need to be in that Hollywood relationship.
Yeah. And wisdom, it's nuanced, isn't it? Like it's only available right now. You can't plan for wisdom. Mm-hmm. And I think when you and I work with people and we're just pointing them to what they already have and the feeling of it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is probably a good time to open up that possibility for people, Karen, because really our retreat in Italy that we have on offer here today is really about pointing you back to that wisdom. That's at the crux of it, right, Karen?
Yeah.
Pointing you back to that wisdom within that really is free from the opinions of others, is free from the approval, is free from the weight on your mind about your body, and is free of self-concern And self-concern can take many forms. Maybe it is just obsessing about how you look each day and what you're wearing and the amount of white noise that takes up. Or maybe it is about the symptoms in your body and the self-concern you have about your health. Maybe like me, it's the self-concern you have regarding how tired or how, the one I got heard you are. You too is an opportunity to go deeper with us and to experience taking the weight of your body off your mind, taking the approval, the need for approval in particular, out of your experience, to really fall into that wisdom within you that will guide you in terms of what to eat, how to eat, what to do with your life, how to do it, what to experience, what to avoid. We want to point you back to that as you also get to really be in the feeling of well-being and contentment of that weekend retreat. So do stay on the line if you'd like to hear a little bit more about that. We have a very special one-time offer that will be open and available through Monday of next week. So do stay on the line if you'd like to hear a bit more. Karen, do you want to share a little bit about that? Or do you want me to go a little bit deeper on that? Where do you want to go with that?
Well, I'll just repeat where the seed of the idea was born. And that was after the first Weightless course I did and going into the lab. I keep referring to Italy as the laboratory to apply all the concepts, because it's just such a natural environment for it. And what I love about doing a retreat and living in that consciousness that people, I think one of the biggest challenges of doing online programs is you have people all over the world and you're trying to flag the feeling for them, follow the feeling. That's wisdom. That's it, whatever. But what I love about doing it in the laboratory of Italy with a group of women all together, that it's so easy to flag the feeling because you're in it, and then you reinforce it, explain why it's there and explore it. And then you get to go home with it,
Yeah.
But I knew, right when I came to Puglia and visited you last November, it was, I'm like, oh, I wish everybody was here right now. Yeah. This is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so part of our retreat experience, ladies, obviously is going to focus not just on the incredible coaching from myself and Karen, but it's going to focus also on, getting reconnected with real food. I think one of the things that is truly on offer here is this what we have decided to do is to create a 3-day container for you, whereby you can join us across 3 days in Puglia, Italy, first weekend of October. And you will have time for coaching with us. There will be time for siestas. There will be time for exploring a new part of this region. If you've been here before with me, there are many new experiences on offer. And particularly, we will also include, a cooking experience and food experiences, because I know that when Karen and I were exploring this before, it was really apparent, Karen, that so many women are caught up in the intellect about food that they don't even really know what their body wants. So this is a kind of very hands-on, in the moment experience with real food as well. We'll also have an experience of going to the land and picking the food and actually cooking the food and having that experience of really knowing in the moment. Because here's what I'm hearing, Karen, as well, is when this work happens online, there's so far you can get, but when this actually happens in the moment with real-time experience, this is where insight and transformation can occur. So that retreat experience will be limited to 8 participants.
Say that again, Grace.
And the way that you can get that is the breaking.
Yeah, it broke up. Grace just said it will be limited to 8 participants, and the way you can get that, go on your back.
Okay, and the way that you can get more information about that is to literally reach out to Karen and I, and we'll jump on a call with you to see if it's a good fit. If you're curious about what the retreat might entail, you can check out gracefulcoaching.net/retreats, and you'll see that I have a kind of a lowdown on how retreats here work. What I will say is that this is specific to this conversation. So the retreats that you see on my website are geared more towards those that want to awaken their potential in terms of their career. The retreat that we're talking about here is really geared towards you getting comfortable in your own skin, really geared towards to freeing yourself from the opinions of others and having the freedom that we've explored today in terms of your body, your image, your age, your self-consciousness, your approval, whatever it is that just keeps causing the cortisol to rise in your body is what you're experiencing freedom from as you look in this direction with us. So
yeah,
first weekend of October. Go ahead, Karen.
Well, for me, it's a 3, we talked on this webinar about how the manual is built into the system, and it's all of that stuff, working upstream to reintroduce yourself to your own manual, to reintroduce yourself to the same thing that's in the trees and the lions and the antelope and the raccoons, and, to reintroduce you to your own GPS around food, and around weight and around approval. And it's the same thing, your other retreats are about, yes, the topic is specific, but it applies to every area of your life because you have a manual for all that. It's just one thing. Mm-hmm. So it's a 3 days of playing with yourself.
In a very fun way that includes a lot of good food. 3 days of playing with yourself. Well, that's a first for me, Karen. That's a retreat title, but we'll go there. Yes, 3 days of playing with yourself in Puglia, Italy. First weekend of October, 8 participants, 8 spaces available. We have a beautiful early bird offer that includes a hotel bonus. So you get your hotel for the 3 nights. You'll get your food experiences, and you'll also get the coaching, of course, with Karen and I. If the weather's good, we'll even get a picnic under the olive groves. So that retreat experience is priced as an early bird offer at $1,500. And that comes with a hotel bonus. And if you're booking by Monday, calls with myself and Karen. So between now and the retreat, you will get some pre-retreat coaching calls with Karen and I to set this in motion already. It's amazing value. It's a one-time offer, and it's an opportunity for you to step forward now if you know that looking in this direction is for you. So stay on the line if you want to speak to Karen and I about this. If you're like, I want to do this, save my space, let me know more, stay on the line and we can talk now. Or feel free to email us separately if you prefer, or Facebook message us, and we'll set up a time to talk with you. We're not just taking 8 people. We want to speak with you to see that it's a fit. So do stay on the line or do email us if you would like to consider taking part in this experience with us. Anything else, Karen, that I'm forgetting, missing, or that you want to share?
No, I think just if anybody has any questions, we can open it up. Any questions or curiosities about what we said in the webinar or about the retreat? You can unmute yourself or raise your little digital hand. If you go under participants, there's a raise your hand option, but I think
and it's usually the questions that are like, oh my God, I can't ask that. Those are the best questions. Or, oh my God, you know, I can't say that. Like though, don't be afraid here. And if there's not, it's okay. If you want to type your question, you're welcome to type it in the box if you prefer. You know, but feel free to. Otherwise, we will start calling it a night here in Italy or a morning there in Los Angeles.
What time is it there?
21 minutes past 8. It's aperitivo time. I only do the time now according to which meal it is. It's aperitivo time. That means when we finish, we're before we have dinner. Oh, okay, I think we'll call it, and we'll take it from there. If you'd like, if you're listening to the recording, get in touch. gracefulcoaching@gmail.com. Karen, do you want to share your email address?
Yeah, it's just krdemarco with an I at gmail.com.
Yes.
krdemarco@gmail.com, or you can contact me through my website. We'll go with the new one, even though I'm in branding transition, but KarenDemarco.com. You can contact me through that too.
Cool. So contact us if you'd like to get in touch. Anything you've heard or anything further that you want to explore in terms of joining us in Italy the first weekend of October. And don't forget to take the recording, listen to it again. The more you listen, the more you hear. And I look forward to seeing you here with us if this is for you. Thanks, Karen. Speak to you soon, ladies.
It's a pleasure. Bye, everybody.
Bye.